Hello, everyone, and welcome to Highground Episode 6. We're joined once again by Coach Koby, myself, Ageless, Tikatee, and a picture of NewBeat currently because he's trying to figure out his webcam that he never changes the setup for, but it's still not working at all for some reason. So he'll join once he's done dealing with that. So welcome once again, everybody. We had a pretty wild tournament over the last weekend. We're gonna dive into things here pretty quickly, but first I wanted to just get a quick what's good from everyone. Let's start with Tikatee. What happened? What's happened lately that's been a good time for you?
Yeah, I mean, kind of good and bad. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to catch many of the games this weekend live because I was actually in Dallas at an anime convention, which was super fun. But yeah, I was like right down the street of where they were holding the games, but just not there myself. But it was a really good time. I was there with a bunch of friends. I had a great time. Got rowdy a couple times. It's probably the biggest convention I've ever been to, and it was a very small venue for the amount of people there, but it was cool. Got some anime posters and some fun stuff.
Sweet. That's pretty cool. Well, damn. I didn't realize there was a lot happening. I feel like there was also like that Rocket League thing that happened.
Oh yeah, there was IEM Dallas. There's DreamHack was going on. There was obviously the Kickoff Clash there. Dallas was just popping this weekend in terms of esports. And I was there at a weeb convention.
I was about to say tick on the weeb flow.
Yeah, damn. That's sweet. What about you, Koby?
Well, I can't compete with like an Overwatch tournament and a weeb convention and a bunch of other stuff that Tikatee and his friends got to do, stumbling around the streets of Dallas. But I'm joking, Tick. But I don't know. I had a pretty good weekend. We actually kept it kind of low key. I got certified online unexpectedly so that I can marry my friend and his fiance after their setup pastor or the person that they had marrying them had I guess like a tragic accident and will not be able to complete the ceremony. So trying to rush to figure out how the hell I'm going to do that. But that was kind of the height of my weekend, is that I get to say, by the power vested in me by www.makemeaminister.com, and I'm very excited to drop that one-liner at the wedding. But yeah, other than that, it was honestly just really nice to take a low-key one for once. It's not something I do very often. I feel like we're always going 100,000 miles an hour, so it was pretty great.
Yes, that's sweet.
Yeah.
I also had a relatively chill. My wife had a softball tournament, so mostly did that. I got a surprise to me visit from the in-laws who were staying with us. So that was cool.
Always a great time.
Yeah,
always
the surprise in-laws.
The old surprise in-laws. So they got to sleep on an air mattress in our living room, which can't be comfortable. I don't know why they keep doing it. But so it was a lot of fun. The first day of the tournament went really well. We had a bit of a rain out on the second day. They had to make all these like wild changes last minute, and everyone was really confused. And I was just kind of like standing there as like a tournament organizer, just kind of like watching the decisions being made and being like, "This is really interesting." Seeing the amount of panic go on during a tournament when something goes sideways, and feeling that vibe really hard.
For sure.
Working with tournament organizers, but it was a lot of fun. I like raked or like squeegeed water off a baseball diamond for like an hour, so that was like a really solid Saturday morning. But it was a lot of fun. Actually, my wife's a hell of a ball player, so it was a good time.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, ended up being a pretty good weekend, and I think we have been joined by NewBeat, at least in the audio world.
It's funny that I came in and the first thing I heard you talk about was a feeling of pure panic when things go sideways. And that's what's been happening to me for the last about 38 minutes as I've been trying to get my camera to work, because for some reason it decided to stop working. Haven't changed the setup. Don't know. Just won't turn on. So
I thought you were gonna say for a second, Ageless, that we were joined by NewBeat's Discord profile picture.
Oh yeah.
I mean, technically that's also true.
It happens, NewBeat. It happens. Glad to have you with us, though.
Yeah, it's I got some exercise in from getting under the desk, getting back. So
Oh, no.
I guess that's a positive. It's like I got some like impromptu like squats done. I don't know.
Yeah. What else? What else good has
esports
happened
workout.
for you this week? Yeah.
What,
For
like-
real.
Like for real, I think this week has been really good for me, just in the fact that like summer showed up and like I've been more active. Like you get out more. Like it's been supposed to rain here like every day, and today's the first day it's actually rained. So like, just getting out and like doing things and feeling like you're part of the world again, and not having to stick yourself inside for like months at a time, because here it gets pretty cold during the winter. So it's finally like broke and summer's here, and it just that's what's good for me right now, is just getting out and enjoying some of the outdoors.
Sweet.
Awesome.
I realized, so this is what happens when Adam's not here, is we went through everything that's good for everyone, but we didn't actually introduce Koby. So Coach Koby, I'm sure everyone in the chat knows exactly who Coach Koby is, because I'm pretty sure this is like half his community. But a caster for ELOL's Get Good tournament, a coach donating his time to teams of all skills, and also has been joining us here a couple times now. Shit talking
Repeat
whatever
guest.
happened last weekend. Repeat guest.
Kobe's our first return guest, so at least not
Oh,
everybody.
wow.
Stick
I
with our
didn't-
stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't
That's
know that. I feel really special now. Thank you. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, first return guest. You can add that to the old bio.
Right in the resume.
Yeah, add that to the very top of the resume.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you
Although
for having me again.
I think the last time you were here, the name was different.
It was,
So-
it's my first time.
Yeah, you've been on
First time
both of our
Highground.
shows.
Yeah.
You are more consistent than the name of the show.
Hey, I'll take it. Well, I really appreciate you having me, and thanks again for the intro. And also shout out all my people in chat. Thanks for coming to show some love. These guys deserve it.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Sorry for the technical difficulties, and we're hoping that'll be the end of it. I'm gonna just knock on wood
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, definitely do that.
Just stop talking about it. We'll
Yeah, I'm
manifest
gonna
something.
shut up.
No one will notice. No one will notice.
Yeah. I guess. Well, this weekend. What the fuck? This was bizarre. The whole thing just out of control. I was gonna start this off here, but that was when Adam was gonna be talking way more at the beginning, and I feel like I've just talked way too much now. So I'm actually gonna hand things off to we'll give it to Tikatee here. Let's start at the grand finals. We'll work our way backwards.
Yeah, we'll work our way backwards. I mean, just looking at like the storylines of these teams, I mean, APAC's been weird this year, right? APAC's been like a mixed bag, and so I had no expectations for how the Clash was gonna go in the East. But for the West, you expect like solid performances out of Dallas, out of Shock, and out of Glads, of course, who ended up taking it all. But I don't know how many people were expecting so many 3 and 4-0 games. Like the half the closest games we got were just 3-1 blowouts anyway. The closest game in terms of scoreline we got was the very first one on broadcast, which was Washington Shock. And it's like all these teams are they're either all so close together, or no one has any idea what they're doing, or everyone's just playing rock paper scissors. And even if you're just throwing rock on repeat and you're the Dallas Fuel and all you've got is rock in your pocket, and the Gladiators have shown that they know how to play paper, you just keep throwing rock at them and hope something sticks. And just like such weird lack of flexibility from these top level teams. I don't even know where to start. But yeah, Glads beat Fuel 4-0 in the grand finals here in an incredibly fast series. It was faster than some of the first to 3 series. And not only that, but like it was such a dominant performance from Glads, to the point where like they're the only ones that looked like an Overwatch League team. The other people looked like they were like newly formed rosters trying, so like they came together for a tournament this weekend for fun with their friends. Like this was a LAN they all pulled up to, and they knew how to play one thing, and when it didn't work, they kept mashing their heads into their keyboards and smashing their monitors until it continued to not work. I was very disappointed in the Fuel, especially. I can't even imagine if I had gone to the event like in the Dallas crowd and they just get full swept by the Glads 4-0. They're beating the Glads in the regular season, by the way. As in the qualifiers for this tournament, that is. So it's like Glads. Obviously, they're a good team. Hi, Archer. Obviously, they're a strong team, but I don't think I had them coming out of the gate like this strong in this tournament. And again, like, worth shouting them out. I'm definitely more focused on Fuel dropping the ball a little bit, but Glad's only dropped a single map this entire tournament throughout all their games. They were the best team by far, bar none. Like I said, like everyone else was just kind of there. Glads were there to compete. Glads were there to win, and they showed it. It was really impressive for sure. But more than anything, I was a little bit disappointed by literally everyone else.
I'm cashing in my scrim bucks / prediction bucks for saying that I think the Glads are one of the strongest teams in the league, period, if they could get their shit together. So whatever those are worth, I'll take those now, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Why did they have like Ons and Space are on the bench? Like,
I mean, one of the players I was definitely most impressed by, like everyone knows Kevster's a maniac. He's a fiend at the game,
Yeah, he's
right?
not real. Yeah.
Yeah. No need to shine additional spotlight on Kevster because he's absolutely doing a lot and putting the team on his back when it counts and stuff like that. But I was super impressed by both rookies on the Glads. Patapan, obviously, he had such an emotional moment on stage. It was so cute. And he definitely popped off, showed up for his region. Really, really impressive stuff. But also Reiner. Reiner played 3 different heroes in 3 very different tempos across 4 maps. He played a solid Rhine randomly on King's Row. He played a very solid Winston, which was like the composition that Fuel should know how to beat. Like I'm pretty sure they started playing the Zarya Reaper when they couldn't keep up in the Winston meta, and they designed it to specifically counter Winston dive, and they just couldn't. And then also the Doomfist, which again Fuel has shown that they can only throw rock and they can only kind of play Zarya at a structured level. And they weren't able to keep up with the depth that Gladiator was offering. And a lot of that, I think, comes from Reiner's hero pool. Obviously, you have space for other heroes. Like, I'm sure Space is probably the one playing Zarya for them, but do you really need it when you're able to run circles around what I think most people would consider the best Zarya team in the league?
Blair brought it up in chat too, was it, especially in the finals, it seemed like the strategy of like, send in Edison with a bubble and he'll kill stuff. They were able to just kind of make that work until the Lucio was like, nah, you can't do that anymore because we've planned for it, and it's not like we're gonna invest all our resources back onto the Reaper. It's like we're gonna send a Lucio back.
Yeah. Do you guys remember? I mean, this is like one of the most recent metas in Overwatch 1, so we don't need to be grandparents to remember this one. But in the new like 6-man or Talon dive with like Reaper Sombra, right. It's like you replace Sombra hack with Zarya bubble, and it's a very similar concept for their all-in. And the number one thing that you'd be doing in that meta is having your Lucio mark the Reaper. And
so the Reaper, that's exactly it.
You just boop him away and he doesn't do anything. That obviously gets mitigated a little bit thanks to the Zarya bubble, but Funny Astro was showing that, like, yeah, the same concept still applies. And in between Reaper aggression too, he's able to find moments to go aggressive and find pop-off moments, which I just wasn't also seeing from Dallas Fuel's Chio on the Lucio. Like, even though they're playing like a hyper-aggressive composition, they're playing to dump all their resources into the Reaper, not all of them are ready to complement the Reaper's playstyle. The distances they're trying to cover didn't always make sense. I saw a little bit of APAC Zarya leaking through into the Dallas Fuel. Maybe they've been having some negative influence over there. I saw a lot of preemptive bubbles that didn't do anything again, and I was starting to get a little irritated at them. But yeah, overall, it just like they looked way too one-dimensional. And they didn't look like the Dallas Fuel that was pushing the limits of this composition in the regular qualifiers. They looked like they have reached a peak, or they just straight up ran out of gas on the day. I mean, I don't want to give them any excuses, but it is worth mentioning they did play a game prior to this versus the Shock, which I'm sure they had to prep heavily for just to make sure they made it into the grand finals. But then, yeah, to get full swept by Glads in the end and not have the flexibility to pull out anything new or even be creative in the same composition to the way they've looked previously in the past, either Glads is really just 10 tiers above everyone else, or I think Fuel, it was probably a little bit of both. Glads showed up, absolutely, but I think Fuel also dropped the bag a little bit here.
I think we got our title to Ageless. It's Highground episode 6. Tick is mad about Zarya bubbles. ... again.
Continued.
Yeah, but that could
Episode
be
10.
that could be the episode title every week.
That's true. This week, Tikatee's mad about Zarya bubbles on a
Okay, here's
very
the-
special episode of Highground.
I would be less mad if it was like harder to use bubbles. It's a button, you know, like it's just one button you press. It's not like outplaying someone with a Genji blade or like tracer movement, or even like other tanks like Winston is like really impressive play with like primal mechanics and like bubble management and stuff like that. But like when you're just pressing a bubble and then your team dies because you didn't do anything with the bubble, that seems like a pretty obvious problem to me. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm coming from my too high up on my high chair or something. But good God, there were so many wasted opportunities and nothing gained. I wish I saved the clip, because there's literally a moment on King's Row where Dallas Fuel's attacking on King's Row, and they do this cool like sim TP rollout where they take theater, right, like everyone does to avoid the Mei wall, and then they go around, and then instead of actually using any of the space, they just run it down main, they waste 2 bubbles, and then they get rushed and die. And then like they almost get full health on first point because they do that like 3 times. Meanwhile, Patapan's like on the high ground running laps around them, just getting kill after kill. It's kind of what you mentioned last time you were here, Koby, about the Glads, where like you mentioned like individually they look absolutely cracked, but their macro games seem to be lacking. And main thing that seemed to be lacking was any sort of like pre-fight planning and like execution of individuals into a greater game plan. And that's 100% what I saw from Dallas, because it was either they were wasting the resources that were important to the engage too early and then not being able to engage, or it was not enough people willing to commit to making the engage work. I wasn't seeing Chio like mark off angles to help control Patapan. I wasn't seeing Hanbin and Edison like being able to get aggressive at the same moments. It was always one or the other. I wasn't seeing Sparkle, who flexed his heart out on every hero in the game. I wasn't seeing play like a supportive role, which he needed to be when you're playing the bubble the Reaper and Reaper kills everyone composition. You don't need Sparkle one clipping the backline. You don't need Sparkle getting big blade plays. He needs to pick up a more supportive role to make that composition work. And again, the synchronicity just wasn't there.
Sparkle's pulse bombs. What?
You know
What gets me I'm just gonna keep ranting. What gets me too is like they have Edison and they're forcing Edison on the Reaper, and they have both Doa and Sparkle who have experience on Reaper and arguably the easier hit scan to play, perhaps the easiest hit scan in the game to play. And they're locking Sparkle onto that instead of putting Edison on Tracer and having Sparkle play Reaper. And I'm pretty sure, I haven't worked with Sparkle personally, but I'm pretty sure both on Element Mystic and on this Fuel roster now, he has a big hand in shot calling. Think you'd want one of the most important playmaking characters in that composition to be vocal, to be able to work in a team setting well, to be able to contribute to comm structure and all these kinds of things. Obviously, I'm not there behind the scenes, not anymore at least, so I can't force them to mix things up or anything like that, but they've committed in this one direction, and I don't see it paying off for them.
And Jason, you mentioned Sparkle's pulse bombs, but up until the finals, Sparkle was sticking pulse bombs like crazy and was barely missing, and it seemed to be different in the finals.
For me, it wasn't even like the attach ratio. It was the like I'm going to die, I'm gonna just toss it out onto someone near me. Like that was my biggest problem with it, honestly. It wasn't even the like inconsistency, it was the sheer just the choices that went into it. It was like, why are you doing this? Even the casters were like, oh, he did it again.
I did see there was a Sparkle pulse bomb in the rain game, which was my favorite of the entire weekend, at least that I saw, was where Sigma fluxed and then Sparkle sprayed the ground and put a pulse bomb on the ground. He dropped him into the flux and it killed 2. Dropped the flux, and I was like, okay, like meme. But I guess even that's like, you don't have to stick anyone if that's the way you're gonna play pulse bomb, right? Like,
Yeah, even I
Path
can
of
stick
least
to ground.
resistance.
You're right. Just put it on the ground, forehead.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird. I'm gonna quickly move on here because I feel like we've been just getting mad about fuel for like half an hour.
I hope I don't come off as too biased.
As a fuel homer. Yeah, I wanted to talk about the shock. We talked about him a little bit. This was just such an interesting development. They kind of fell apart over the course of this tournament. I don't really understand. I feel like we definitely saw some of the teams, get a little bit stronger, get a little bit weaker throughout the tournament. But I don't really know what happened with Shock here. Because they came out of the gate, they beat up a bunch of like lower tier teams, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, they're the best!" And then they kind of got to proving themselves against better teams, and they were still kicking ass. And it was like, "Oh, okay, this is actually like legit." We talked about Krusty's impact on taking a new roster of rookies, and they looked great. They were making great choices. And then it seemed like they're getting left behind by the meta almost. We saw Kaluge on Doomfist, and in one of the interviews, Kaluge was saying like, "Wow, well, I suck at Doom, and I've been like practicing it." And then Krusty was like, "Hey, just play Doom." And when they brought it out, I think they first brought it out against Houston, and they look pretty good, and I was like, well, like Dante's a pretty decent Doomfist, plays a pretty aggressive play style. So to see Kaluge match the Doomfist and they still did decently, I was quite hopeful. And I thought maybe that was something that they were bringing out to as maybe a Houston strategy, just to deal with the Doomfist. But then they just kept playing Doomfist for like the rest of the tournament, and it was bad. And I don't understand it. It's weird. I thought maybe is this because Shock did look really good. They were playing very much the Winston compositions, and that seems to be kind of getting left behind. But I guess, is this something where now that Winston has been left behind, are they getting caught by only having one tank player who is an off tank player?
So there's a few things I want to address there. So I think the first thing I'd say is that I think that I'd be careful about locking in the hard locking in that Winston is getting left behind. I don't know if I think that's. I mean, it certainly seems like that, right? But it's funny you mentioned like the copying of Doom and like the Doom on Doom violence. That seems to be like an infection in the water or something that like the other teams are trying as well. I'll talk about that when I start freaking out about the fuel versus the rain in a minute too. I don't know why teams are trying that. I mean, I get the theory behind it, but it makes less sense when you're forcing a player that doesn't play that hero onto it. And I mean, I'm not questioning Krusty, right? Like if there's anyone not to question, but I just it's an interesting proposition. And I don't know. I don't think the Shock has any ability to evolve. Clearly, I just they've already shown us they can. To the previous discussion we had last time I was here about how quickly they're assimilating a team and learning new things, and everyone's evolving and assimilating quickly because Overwatch 2 and Shock seem to have this amazing command of it so far. And it's funny because in another chat another discussion that I was having was. I got asked if I had to put money on a team, what team am I the most confident in going into this? And I said, Shock, not even close. Not even close. I'm the most confident in the way they've played up to this point. And, and I would have lost money.
Yes. So. I don't know the answer to it. I just found it was one of the most interesting parts of the weekend was seeing a team that has adapted so quickly. And actually, we even saw this in... we did our tournament, the Quest Line Open back in March. Kaluge was on one of the teams. They were playing pretty standard. I think they were playing like some pretty standard like rush stuff coming out. They came out, They got kind of bodied versus the like Ball Zen composition, and
The
then
meta.
the next time we saw them, like the meta, yeah. And then by the next weekend, they came out and just kicked the shit out of everyone with this Ball Zen comp. Like I don't think it's a lack of flexibility from Kaluj at all. I was just it just brought up so many questions about like what caused this? What caused the wheels to come off so hard in this? And you're right, it's probably not like Winston completely leaving the meta, although we have seen like some of the stronger teams. You know, obviously Dallas completely shit the bed with their Winston play as well. But I can't figure it out. Like it was just kind of baffling. Bullskunk saying that like perhaps they were trying to enable proper more, but they weren't comfortable with it yet.
If it's not broken, don't fix it. I don't know.
I don't know. It was a weird storyline that I wanted to like kind of like look at and probably just like ask you guys that are smarter than me some questions about what the hell happened here. To shock, like what the they didn't like kind of lose either. Like this was rough.
This is one of those situations where I think the most valuable thing, which we're never going to get unfortunately, would be to get like the unfiltered player opinions about where the meta is and like how they feel about their hero picks. Because obviously after the match when they lose, Kaluj is going to say, oh yeah, my Doomfist suck, I fed, it's my fault guys, blame me, not my teammates, kind of thing. Like have they've obviously been practicing this in scrims. It's obviously something that they had confidence pulling out in game. I strongly doubt this would be something they just decided like, hey, let's just mirror it for kicks kind of deal. That's something you would do like week 1 of a new patch, or if you were working back when hero pools were a thing, sometimes you'd do that on match day, unfortunately, when people were still figuring out the meta like on match day. But we've been in this meta for over a month now, and this is not day 1 of the tournament that they pulled this out as well. So this seems to be something practiced, in my opinion. But at the same time, I don't know if the players fully understand why the pick is happening, or if they have the depth to fully flex on the picks to make it work in multiple situations, or if it's just on this map we play Doomfist because we can do this one thing. On this map we play Winston because this is a really good spot for a bubble kind of deal. And if that's the case, then of course they're not going to look as structured, they're not going to look as strong, but at least it gives them some confidence knowing that they've got some fundamentals they can rely on, knowing that they understand at least one strength of the pick or the composition on a given situation.
That's exactly what it looks like to me too, is that it looks like there's some map prep, like you said, that's like that we play Doom on this map because we want to facilitate X, we want to facilitate A to B in this circumstance, or we want to wake up this combo, or we want this win condition in this whatever in this totality of circumstance. And I think that what you got to witness was what happens during the spaces in between that circumstance or those circumstances when that happened, which is the actual play itself, where it's like things have been explicitly prepped for a couple circumstances, but perhaps all of the full macro behind what's happening when you're not in those circumstances, or the things that happen when you're not setting up for that, or when you don't just win the fight, right, the way that you think that you're going to, or that doesn't go according to plan. What happens after that? And as a coach, I can't tell you how many times I worked with a team and rehearsed and planned, and it's like the best laid plans kind of thing, right? And it's even when everything should work exactly the way it should, it just doesn't, because of one thing or some weirdo circumstance that happens. Well, then you're stuck with the next 3 to 4 minutes of fight, or 2 to 3 minutes of fight, trying to pick up the pieces of what didn't work in a now suboptimal disadvantaged situation, and with almost no prep to how you're going to handle that post engagement that shouldn't have been lost in the first place, right? There was no prep because you were supposed to have won. The prep was supposed to happen stage, do it again, whatever it is. So without an institutional inbuilt understanding of the macro of that comp and the win condition that's facilitated, that's not a set play or that's not a set dive. And I'm not saying that something simple like this is what happened, because I'm sure the shock, that's not like the shock to not have contingencies on contingencies for stuff. That's just how crusty is. But when that maybe didn't have as much time to be flushed out as it would have been normally, you see fights like kind of what we saw so far, which is fights going long, and the longer they go, the worse it looks in some situations because you're further away from home.
Yeah.
Is this something where, like, not by only having one tank player, it's like, oh, also can you learn Doom now? I feel like when you see someone like the Glads, like obviously they kept in Reiner, but at the same time, they do have space, and they do have someone to be like, we think the meta's going a kind of a weird way, or like I guess it's not a perfectly successful example, but the Fuel, where they're like, okay, if we want to play our Winston comps, we still have Fearless. If we want it, we still have options, and it's not like one person needs to learn all of the things all the time. Like, I'm very curious what's going to happen when a new tank comes out, which I'm assuming is going to be, not that far away. Like only having one tank player seems terrifying to me.
I think the biggest thing is to unironically learn from London. Even though they're not part of this tournament, I still love London. Aces high. So being able to lean into your niche, and your niche being one of the most limiting tank comps in the entire game, is really important when new metas drop and stuff like that, when new heroes release, when new map pools open and stuff like that, when new matchups are happening that you're not 100% prepped for. Being able to understand something at a purely fundamental level is massive in situations like that. Going back to what Koby was saying about basically prep time for these teams, it's so much time to have one player, let alone 5 players, fully understand like the theory behind why they're playing the heroes they're playing on specific maps, in specific matchups, whatever it is. It's another thing entirely to pull that into a scrim and execute on it. And then for especially rookie players, like the majority of the Shock roster, it can be another thing entirely to pull that out on stage in front of 10,000 people screaming for your opponents, right? So there's a lot of situations here where it could be something where it was just like, there's just a lapse anywhere along that chain of events where it's like, yeah, we've had success with this in theory when we talked about it, everyone seems to be on the same page, but we couldn't execute it properly in scrims. Or we've been doing it great in scrims, but then day of on match day, oh, it didn't work out because this one situation happened that never happened in scrims. Or we got nervous on match day and we got a little bit antsy and executed too fast. Like little things like that can be such a difference maker. And I think this kind of just brings me back to the point where, like, this is why Glads looked like the only Overwatch League team in this tournament, because they were the only ones able to show creativity, flexibility, and had answers to almost every solution like a proper practice team should look. And to see that a couple months after the release of a brand new game for these players, which they still can't practice in ranked in terms of learning individual hero mechanics interactions, is actually insane. And they kind of stole this title from Shock of looking like the most structured team in the league. Shock was the team that always had an answer for situations. For every losing situation, they could turn into a winning one just because they're the Shock. That was Glads in the matchup we saw in the finals. And not that there were many losing situations to turn in that Fuel matchup, unfortunately. They showed such composure and they showed such a depth of knowledge and experience in multiple situations, multiple compositions, multiple map types. Unfortunately, only one matchup versus Hanman Zarya, but yeah, it was just really impressive. And you're right, I want to know more from these teams. I want to know what's going on behind the scenes. I want to be a fly on the wall. But I really think it really boils down simply to just a lack of experience, not enough time yet. It's still very early on in this meta's life cycle, and it's probably about to change with the next tournament cycle. So I'm still really high up on the Shock, but they need to make sure that they've got a deeper understanding and more flexibility moving forward.
I think you bring up a really good point too about just that they're in like this own weird bubble, right? With the Overwatch 2 beta being a thing, you can't go into ranked. You don't get that extra practice time. Like I know, and obviously Tikatee, Koby, you'd know more about this than I would, but like in the past, like players would have like, okay, we have these scrim blocks, but then you also have to like play ranked for like X amount of time. Like in between games and stuff like that too, and like that opportunity, at least on Overwatch 2, just does not exist right now. So that makes it harder for people to get used to what they're playing if they can't play it as much.
It would be like trying to learn a new hero, but like not having access to quick play. but it's like,
Yeah.
oh, all
Like,
you
how
can
is
do
how
is
is Kalush supposed to practice Doomfist? Exactly. Yeah.
no, exactly. Like, by the way, you can only practice against Overwatch League level tanks.
Have
Like,
fun on the training range.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like,
Go watch Get Quaked on, and good luck.
Yeah.
yeah,
So I think that another really good point too is like the pressure of the stage, right? Playing in an environment that is decidedly not yours, right? And then when like you said, with ravenous Fuel fans, screaming for the other team, for the other guy. But yeah, I think that it's funny talking about like the macro knowledge and the macro institution, and the Shock looks so good at that. It's interesting to consider that the Shock looks so good at that because their stuff works. Like when they make plans, like for example, when they played the Glads a couple weeks ago, right? Their plan was very clearly, we go second. We're gonna kite resources until we go second. When they're we go second, and then we ISO supports and we kill them. And they did it over and over and over again, and it was a roll. They had obviously had some contingency plans that they reacted to and used. So it's really interesting to see, what happens when the plays don't work. And then when we talk about coaching macro and coaching like understanding, what we're really talking about is teaching players in particular, or helping players to work with the team to understand how at any given moment in their life cycle, what they're doing, how that contributes to something that's greater than the sum of its parts. So how does that contribute to like the larger win condition in this moment? And I think that if I had the Shock players right here and I paused at any given timestamp and I say, what's your role right now? How do we win? I bet you they could tell you. They could tell you right on that pause screen, sitting here and having this conversation. And they could probably go a lot deeper than even I could, or maybe even Tick could. No offense, Tick. But doing it in real time, having that thought process while you're trying to not get dove by, like you said, the Overwatch level tier tracer, while you're trying to figure that out after the plan didn't go according to plan, when you're so used to it going according to plan, is extremely difficult, and it can look pretty unwound, from our perspective. It's like I often think of the all I can think of right now is like, have you guys ever seen the Olympic figure skater meme where it's like the Olympic skater, they do like the quadruple axel and like they slip a tiny bit on the landing, and there's like the 600-pound guy on a couch with like a bag of Doritos, and he's like, ha, idiot. Like that's like how I think of me in this situation right now, which is like it's so complex and there's so much. But the other just piece I wanted to say is, how much money I would have paid to have been a fly on the wall during the film room review after FaZe was screaming at the Glads about their last Shock game. when they just got like, I don't want to say coach diffed, but like they got like macro diffed, for literally 40 minutes just in a row. Yeah. And I think that just listening to that, clearly I think they come into that, and I clearly FaZe opened the conversation with it. We are never losing that team again.
Yeah. I definitely would have liked to hear like more thoughts on that from like those coaches' side, like you said, Koby. Mm-hmm. But Koby, I also know you had some thoughts on the Fuel versus the Rhine. Wow.
Yeah, the Fuel rain game was it was something. There was something to behold. I obviously I simp for the homies team, right? Like I was rooting for the Fuel the whole time too, going into it. But I talking about, I said before about like the Doom on Doom violence and something's in the water. I thought it was incredibly interesting where the rain looked pretty good on Oasis, and then the Fuel, Fearless couldn't stop dying. The rain did an amazing job of punishing Fearless on the way in every time. So much so that the Fuel was like, what do we do, right? Monkey, we can't play Monkey. So they literally mirrored Rain's comp, and they played the Doom comp. And I was like, dude, if there's any team to play a Doom comp against, I don't know that I would have picked the Doom team. You're just gonna get outvalued, right, against the Doom team, against Hawk's Doom, and then they proceeded to get walked on for. I told Tikatee before broadcaster, I think that at one point they both switched at the same time, and I think Hawk had 100% ult charge at the same moment that Fearless had like 31% ult charge. Talk about like the impact diff that's happening there. And I mean, there's a million fetches that go into that one isolated circumstance, but that's like a decent illustration of like how, just how it just, if you're the Rain and you see them come out in the mirror comp and they're on Doom, you gotta feel pretty good. You gotta be like, oh yeah, let's do this. You want to play our game? We can play our game. And you have to think that's kind of what they're thinking. But it just strikes me that they switched to King's Row, and then I think the Fuel made some changes, and Hanbin showed up with the pink laser beam hero, and and then they grabbed the Reigns, but they leaned back into their game, and then I think the Reign beat themselves. Like I don't mean to beat up on the Fuel, but I think that we're talking about how it's interesting that I don't know that I would say that the Fuel beat the Reign. Going forward, I think that the Fuel just lean into what they do well. They were positionally set up better, the entire time, so they had a little bit of that. But I think that the Reign just made some silly things. Like I don't know if anyone else watched the game, but on Circuit Royale, the Reign's first 5 minutes of defense is a literal textbook example of how not to play defense on Circuit Royale. And it's like, that's that. I hope that's not a hot take, but it's just they full switch just for fun on Circuit Royale. These are some fun notes. They switched comps on defense. The Reign played 5 different comps. 5 different comps. 3 of those comps, every hero was switched. And then, you guys want to know how many different unique comps the Reign played total? 8 over the course of the map. They played 8 different comps over the course of the map, which is just, they were just struggling to figure out what to do. And they looked best on double sniper, which is not the Doom thing, right? And so they looked best on double sniper, and they managed to stabilize a little bit, but it was a mess. I'm just watching the Reign like effectively come unglued on some of these maps, and I'm like, the Fuel wasn't even beating them. But I think that they played well, and the Fuel just played okay. They just played consistently, and they won based on economies of Reign switching comps the whole time, and it was really interesting. I don't know I don't know what the Reign is doing here, but I also wrote down that I think it's a good example for anyone in chat about how I think that watching the Reign play defense on Circuit Royale in particular is a perfect example of what happens when you let the plan or the prep become the enemy of actually playing the game, right? So the Reign, and I assume Tikatee knows what I mean by that, but I'll try to be more clear. But clearly they wanted to play a certain comp on point A defense. They wanted to play on B defense. They had a certain comp they wanted to play on C defense. They thought were optimized based on the matchup, based on hero pools, whatever. And then they would constantly rotate to those without working out, and it allowed the Fuel to just snowball. What happens is they would switch, it didn't work, try the next one, it didn't work, try the next one, it didn't work, try the next one, and it was almost like watching like an Overwatch. You just watch so clearly them trying to find their feet and just completely sacrificing any economy they had over and over and over again, where they just like, this is the plan, we gotta execute the plan. Instead of like reacting to what the Fuel presented them with and then changing to a comp that they could then find some playback against. I just think that they had a plan, they hard stuck to it, and that cost them a lot of economy, it cost them a lot of time, it cost them potentially some suboptimal engagements that lost them fights, and they got pretty hard rolled all the way through it. So I think they beat themselves a lot more with things like that. But
do you think that's a mentals thing? It does seem like Atlanta is a pretty like a mentals heavy team. They ride high and low on it.
I do. I definitely think it's a coaching thing too, where it's like the thing where you play a team and maybe they don't execute the strats well, and the coaches beat you up for a week, okay, and they say, hey, we design these plays, we design these strats, we practice these things, let's run them, and then they get so in their head that in game, right, they're so focused on trying to execute the strats, so focused on trying to play what they practiced, even if it doesn't make the most sense in certain circumstances, they force it. And then that ends up being worse for a million reasons, for economy, for synergy, for morale, for whatever. So I think that's a little bit of both. I think it's definitely mental based, but I don't know. I just didn't see. It looked to me like they were reacting to things that weren't visible in the game, or they were trying to do things that without a logical reason. It's almost like they set the plan and they refused to adapt it along the way. and I think it would have helped them
It was
greatly.
a scrim. Like they were playing it like a scrim, where it was like, oh well, we practiced this. We really want to get good at this comp on this point. So
Exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, they definitely had some. They definitely had some bright spots. I think. I put. Well, I'll talk about this again. I think that. I think that Hawk Zarya, for being the Doom guy, or the Doom tank. I thought the Hawk Zarya was good, or at least not bad. I was impressed by it. I just. It was. I didn't know what I was getting into when I picked that game to watch. To really dissect. It was not what I expected, and I think Tikatee, you said it really perfectly. Is that they did not look like an Overwatch League team to me. Watching that,
I mean, yeah, just going back to like what you said about comps, like there's a reason you rarely see teams in the Overwatch League full commit to a full-on comp swap, and usually the reason that is because you have a very linear, one-dimensional advantage that you can force because the point of the map is changing, because the enemy team is playing an equally linear comp that you can just play paper to their rock kind of deal, something like that. Like this is something you'd see at most like third point King's Row, because they just turn off flank routes, so you don't have to worry about them anymore, so you can play a different composition. You can worry about high grounds instead, that kind of thing. So unless the game is like fundamentally changing, it's an inherent disadvantage. I would say I was on the fence about this, whether or not swapping was going to be better or worse in Overwatch 2 because of the slower ult economy generation. I think I'm solidly landing on it's a very strict, heavy disadvantage. I think what changed is that on third points on a map like Circle Royale is a perfect example. It's less of a disadvantage just because defender spawn it's like 2 CP everywhere now. But other than that, yeah, like swapping comps that aggressively, unless you have something you can immediately capitalize on, is rarely a good idea, even in like your average comp game. And yeah, there's a reason why you don't see Owl teams acting like that.
For sure, it was just so confusing with like the fuel swapping to play the Reigns comp in the Doom, and then almost after Oasis, it's like the Reigns swapped to play Fuel's comp, and they played Zarya on Zarya for the whole time. And I'm like, what are you doing? It's like it's like Fearless trying to play Doom into Hawk is the same as anyone trying to play Zarya into Hanbin. I'm like, you think you're gonna outclass the, So in fact, I have a little surprise for you guys. I take really extensive notes when I watch these games, right? So I took 6 pages of notes about these games. I think Harvester's going to throw out my notes in particular for the Coliseum game that I took. And I think
everyone's favorite map.
Yeah, everyone's favorite map. I think that it will really enumerate exactly what's going on. Exactly how my feelings progress. I don't know if we have it available, but
I'm just pulling it up right now.
Yeah, those are my notes for Coliseum.
Oh my god.
so that was
Ratio.
at that point that was all that needed to be said. So that's
Koby, I would have loved to see you like make a flow chart out of that. It's just a straight line.
Is Hanbin playing Zarya? Yes. Win.
Yeah, that's literally it. I was like, I don't need to write anything else. I don't know what else to write that I haven't just kicked the horse's skeleton at this point, So.
I mean, we could switch our glance over to the East for a moment as well, because they did have a bit of a smaller tournament, obviously with only 4 teams involved in the Kickoff Clash once we got to the playoffs. And the one thing that I wanted to kind of highlight, mention, is just the most Philadelphia Fusion thing ever happened, which was they rolled through their first 2 games, and including a 3-0 on Shanghai, and everyone's like, oh, Philadelphia Fusion has finally figured it out. Like we talked last week, maybe MN3 and Zest are coming back to earth a little bit, and then they win those first 2 games, and you're like, well, Fusion's good. This is it. They're finally gonna get a win. Then they go up against the Seoul Dynasty in the final and get 4-0'd, which is. I mean, I should have, like, Koby, you were talking about betting earlier. I should have put money on Philadelphia getting 4-0'd because I would have made money. Because that just, like, it was like this weird contradiction of, like, I can't believe this just happened. And yeah, that's the perfect ending. Like,
I haven't seen these games yet. What are these compositions? What year is it?
Yeah.
So the whole thing is that everyone knows that Prophet kind of sandbags himself the whole season, waits for playoffs, and then pops off. I think he is getting the energy for playoffs from Philadelphia, and I think the real issue was that Prophet was against Philadelphia, because then they're screwed. That's where he's getting all this skill from.
So it's like a perfect.
He's gonna reach his final form soon.
Yeah.
That's what when Philly changes their name or something.
Yeah, maybe they need to be the team that goes over to Vegas. Get that in.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Forgot about that news.
That's a thing.
Man,
Yeah.
so much has been going on.
Yeah, I was like, that was another thing I saw that, and I was like, is that real? Is
That's real.
You mentioned
about
betting. I think I learned that I just would not bet on any of these games ever.
No.
Definitely not APAC.
Yeah,
Now NA is all equally a mixed bag, and I can't wait for the next split to start. And then Gladiators looks like the worst team in NA for no reason, and they struggle again like they were struggling in the qualifiers.
Like APAC is so crazy right now. It could have been like, Seoul Dynasty Philadelphia Fusion final, and I would not have been shocked if like the Guangzhou Charge would have somehow won that game. Surprise! Like
Dark horse
Guangzhou's
time.
music. Yeah, they come in from the audience and just hit somebody with a steel chair. I don't know. Like
Steel chair.
like just some weird like wrestling heel coming out of the crowd. But there's honestly no good time to bet on APAC at all. But I just thought it was really interesting given like the entire history of the Philadelphia Fusion from like the 2018 Grand Finals up until now. It always ends up being the same for Philadelphia, and like my heart goes out to them a little bit because if you're a Philly fan, like it sucks to watch. Like, okay, we're in the finals again. This is gonna be great, and then like, yeah, no, we got 4.
Here we go again.
Edging their fans for 5 years.
Oh,
All right, we got a title for the video.
Oh, there it is. It's not that kind of video.
all right. So with that, I think that's a perfect note to move on, for sure. And just generally, like we kind of touched on it a bit, but Paris to Vegas, like that is a truly crazy move coming up.
Yeah, this is our first. I mean, unless you want to count Valiant, basically our first re-labeling, re-franchising of a league team. The Paris team moving over to Vegas. I wonder if they're going to change their name or they're just going to be like the Vegas Eternal. I think they've trademarked Vegas Eternal, right?
Yeah.
That was like the big leak that happened, and then they confirmed it like the next day. So that's cool. And it's definitely sparked some people's, will remain nameless, some tinfoil hat theories about what might happen with one of the only 2 EU teams now coming over to NA. It seemingly might hint towards, and I don't want to confirm anything because it's such a stretch to even like assume this, but like what if this like indicates a complete restructuring of the league's tournament format, and like we stop doing a global circuit and start doing region format, and we just do an NA league and like a Korean league, similar to what League of Legends does, similar to what Valorant does, similar to what most esports do and have found success for the past decade doing. Instead of trying to force instead of trying to force this global league during a pandemic and forcing people to fly around the world for LANs. That seems like a pretty cool idea and very unique to esports.
It is really bizarre. Like, and I am hopeful for it. It seems a little late, but the idea when they were like, yeah, we're gonna like fly to London and then to LA. Was like, have you ever done that? That's terrible.
It's horrible.
I'm struggling to imagine like what would happen like if COVID never hit, because like literally the week that COVID lockdown started in the US, like the week after that, we were supposed to be in China, like on the fuel. Like we were supposed to be flying internationally across the border to China to compete at a LAN there on like 2 nights jet lag sleepover, and then competing on stage at one of their home stands. And just like at the time, that sounded sick. We were gonna be ballers, man. We were like first class international athletes, all this stuff. It sounded sick, and the production value we knew like esports in the East was gonna be insane. Like the arena was gonna be insane, the crowds were gonna be insane, and then it just didn't happen. And looking back, I'm kind of glad, because like, can you imagine the precedent that would have set? Like, if that,
Oh god.
like the first month would have been amazing, and then every player in the league would have retired. Like everyone would have been instantly fed up with that travel. Like it's already, this might be controversial, but I think it's a pretty level-headed take to say I think Overwatch is one of the most demanding, if not the most demanding esport for pro players in the entire esports scene. Like
100%.
any genre, any game. I think Overwatch is up there, if not the number one spot for mentally taxing and exhausting esport to be professional at and maintain professional status in. Couple that with the most rigorous travel schedule that esports has ever seen, and like never being home and always playing away games across the world, like that's insanity. I can't imagine any other esport doing that. Like even League of Legends, they have their like worlds and stuff like that, but that's like once a year event, right? Where everyone goes to the same space and they're there for like a month prior. I know like a lot of teams, like NA teams, go to Korea and like boot camp for a month leading up to worlds and stuff like that. That makes sense. At least it makes more sense than this attempted global league that, while it looks good on paper and sounds hype as hell, realistically, like I can't imagine asking to put all these 18-year-old kids through this. It'd be so outrageous. So bit off topic from the Paris rebrand, but I think this might hint towards a more stable structure in the league moving forward, which is cool.
I hope so. I hope
100%.
I really hope that happens.
And then to your point too, Tick, that's kind of cool. Obviously, something you have personal experience with is I think it enables some really cool setups for things. Again, this is kind of a topic, but in the same vein for like the World Cup.
Yeah,
and like less bleed through for different teams in the World Cup. Like, you give people the World Cup will be a chance to get people exposed to players they don't see all the time. If that was the case, and
yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I don't think that's a hot take at all, for the record.
I would love for that to happen. I think it'd be it just in general. I do worry about obviously like EU, Overwatch just having like no teams, but at the same time, like, does that mean that you get some sort of support for T2?
I think the ideal world is what this does is it cuts back the cost of running the Overwatch League itself. Like obviously it'd still be a big production, but just not having as much travel, homestand, broadcast things associated on like a team by team, city by city basis, worldwide basis, I think saves a little bit of money that they could maybe put into the T2 scene to properly support it. At least properly support it in more areas. And again, it doesn't need to be the Overwatch League. It doesn't need to be anything crazy. Just let regions run contenders, give them some support, run a broadcast for them in their areas, like bring back OCE, bring back SEA, bring back South America, and like all these different regions that haven't seen any support for the past couple of years now, and they're still putting out talent. Patafan came back from Valorant after competing in contenders for when he was 14, like 4 years ago, and then he left the scene because there was no support for it, and he's still, well, now he's winning championships, which is insane. So yeah, just support the scene, support these players, because that's the lifeblood of the competitive scene. Like Overwatch League is great and it needs to exist and it should exist at a high level, but like the lifeblood of the competitive scene is the up and comers.
Yeah, it's such a cool storyline, but at the same time, I feel like Blizzard is being like rewarded by having this like, hey, this cool storyline of this tier 2 player that came back and won. Like, listen, you didn't do this. Shut up.
You did everything to push him away possible.
This was in spite of Blizzard. Like, what the fuck? There should be way more of this. Or like at least another instance of it at some point.
Yeah.
Like one other instance would be cool. It's a great storyline. I hope they don't pat themselves on the back about it, like, at all. Also, like, probably the first instance of like a pro player leaving Valorant for Overwatch, like, ever.
I mean, yeah,
like,
the Valorant
don't get
crowd's
too comfortable with that.
Too new to have anyone leaving the scene yet, I think. But yeah,
to join Overwatch. So yeah, that was kind of interesting. Paris making the move. Before we get too far along in that, I also want to talk about Vancouver coaching.
Yeah.
Hey,
And someone shoulder checking their way into the roster.
hey,
Yeah.
there he is. The myth.
Welcome to Canada. You have to be able to shoulder check if you're going to be in Canada.
Oh, true. He'll fit in with the Canucks for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
You decided the wrong sport. Wrong sport.
yeah. You know what? The Canucks could probably use him.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's,
this was Deepe. We haven't actually mentioned him by name, but yeah, Deepe officially signed to the Vancouver Titans now after Flubby and Pew being dropped. It's kind of like a mixed bag because I think public perception wise, right now on Vancouver, Deepe can do no wrong. Like if they never win a game the rest of the season, it's just like org problems. Like this was clear from day one, right? Structuring the team, the coaches they had, org problems. He didn't get to build his own roster. He gets a free pass. Or if they even like perform marginally well, Deepe, instant success. What a god-given coach! Like instant success. Like nothing he touches won't turn to gold. Like kind of deal. So I'm like, this is like a win-win-win for Deepe. Obviously, good to see him back in the league. Good for him to get another position. I hope he manages to turn some heads at Vancouver and manage to turn around some of their games this season. They definitely have the talent, like we've mentioned countless times on this show. There's a lot of talent over there in Vancouver. So let's see if Deepe can work some magic and bring him into a competitive level in the league this year.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what that is going to look like.
Are you mad? I gotta ask. How do you feel about this?
I'm very interested in how this is going to go because I do think Vancouver has it does have a lot of talent. Them dropping Psycho is a weird kind of thing for it. I'm maybe it was like a funding issue, which it shouldn't be, by the way. This is an organization that has like by politician money, so it's pretty aggravating to see that happen. As our WL master, parent org of Vancouver isn't known to be friendly. No, they're fucking not to anyone. I live in Vancouver. Nah, not a huge fan of some of the ethical decisions regarding the parent organization. Not the Vancouver Titans. That's its own story.
Well.
But they have their own list. But when you go up further, it gets worse. So yeah, I'm pretty interested to see how this is going to go. I don't know. I don't know how long it takes, I guess. And that was one of my questions was a new coach is coming in. Obviously, it's a pretty unique situation because this is a team that has been struggling pretty immensely. A new coach is coming in. How long do you think it takes before we see any sort of a real reflection, or will we ever see a real reflection in season one as far as Deepe goes? Is that like maybe in a month once the systems come in, or is that like a 6-month thing? Is it a year from now kind of thing?
I think
you go first.
Yeah, obviously I haven't worked with Deepe personally. I don't know Mr. Pay. But he's put in a bit of a similar situation that Arrow was put in at the end of season 1 of Fuel when he joined at stage 4 and they kicked Kai out, where we have an underperforming roster, new talent coming in for coach, establishing a new structure, trying to turn things around. And Arrow did a great job of that in stage 4, and Fuel started the stonks started to go up and stuff like that. So it's very possible to see an instant turnaround, just having new structure, having some fresh faces. It's kind of shitty to say, but unironically, just bringing in new talent is a revitalizer for a lot of teams, especially teams that have been struggling and teams have been underperforming, and teams who, in the public perception especially, I know people say all the time, just don't read the internet, lol. But I promise you, every player in the league is on Reddit, or if you're in China, on Weibo and all that kind of stuff, reading about themselves and seeing what people think of them. And just having a fresh face, a fresh perspective, fresh talent on the roster can do a lot for lifting morale, for showing some light at the end of the tunnel kind of deal. As long as they think there's a path forward, they'll be able to walk it in terms of the player's perspective.
For mentioned in chat for the new coach bounce, which is in other sports as well.
Yeah. Absolutely, for sure. And it's definitely worth remembering too that a lot of these players are kids, right? They're under 20 years old. This is their for a lot of people their first like job kind of deal, if you want to consider this a job. I know some people might consider that a hot take, but this is the first time where in a structured environment, like they're looking for leadership. They're looking for people that they respect to help guide them, to help be the best players they can be. And if these are players that look up to and respect DPay, and that this is exactly what they've been waiting for, like I said, this could be an instant turnaround for some of this talent. On the other side of the spectrum, this is a roster that DPay has no connection with, that DPay has not worked with before, that DPay did not have a hand in structuring or hiring the players themselves. We don't even know if he's going to have coaching staff in addition to himself, like if they're going to hire analysts or assistant coaches. So he might be thrown directly into the deep end and have no chance to swim. So it might see like a full year of this trying to get a little bit better, maybe seeing marginal improvement, but we might be able to see him take on a more structuring role going into next season if they end up rebuilding, going into things like that, or even maybe a mid-season rebuild, knowing that teams can now drop players whenever they want, apparently.
Or an entire roster.
Yeah, or he moved to Vegas. So it could be any or all of the above. Knowing DPay's reputation with the Glads, and he does, from what I've heard, have a strong structure behind him, and that he like believes in pretty firmly. I wouldn't be surprised to see moderate success this upcoming tournament cycle. I don't think they'll be taking down the Fuel or the Glads or Shock anytime soon, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them take some games that they haven't been able to take yet. Maybe like the Londons or the Paris or those kinds of teams, you know?
I was interested in how that was going to work, because I know the new coach bounce is very much a real thing in other sports, where it's like, we just need to change something up, and it's a nice fresh start. I know everyone can probably feel decent if their boss gets fired. So like, that's a good week anyway. So it doesn't surprise me to hear that. I know it's a thing in other sports. So I would like to see Vancouver get some success. I think it's an interesting time for the org. They obviously invested heavily early on, and then are kind of like a min-max the investment somehow. They like went hard early, and then they're like, what if we spent nothing?
They're doing the reverse Boston.
Yeah, and I feel like now they're kind of starting to meet in the middle. I think they have some decent talent, and they're trying to be taken just a little bit more seriously. The whole thing is bizarre. The choices just in general across the board have been really bizarre from Vancouver. I think just because they squandered so much potential, I think is one of the reasons everyone's so mad at them. So I'm curious to see what they do with not going from like superstar roster to like, what are you doing? Having this kind of like, oh, this is a good team. Okay, we can work with this. I think this is a lower middling or maybe middling team. I'm very curious to see how that's going to progress with new coaching, with some new staff. How does that look when you are the only coach for a team like this, though?
Exciting and terrifying.
Yeah, it is definitely jumping straight into the deep end. I would not envy his position, but obviously it is the ultimate proving grounds at the same time. And I think it is a little bit of a good thing to have relatively low expectations going into a team like Vancouver and being in that position, compared to like knock on wood, God forbid, if like Krusty were to, I don't know, go blind or something and could no longer coach Overwatch and they had to fill a replacement like that, those would be some big shoes to fill. But now we're coming into a team. Yeah, true. We'd have someone describing it in his ear during the game, and he'd still be coaching the best team in the league. But yeah, to step into this position with nowhere to go but up, quite literally, they haven't won a game so far in the league. It's hard to say that things won't look bright with DPay under, but obviously if things stay exactly the same, there's still like a safety net of like maybe he can introduce some structural changes between off seasons, but it wouldn't be the result anyone's hoping for, obviously. So we're going to need to see something from DPay, and there's definitely going to be that pressure, but it is a fresh start for the team, for the players, for DPay himself. So I think the best thing to do is just see what he can do with it.
I think I don't. Tick just lives in my brain, so I don't have.
Rent free.
Yeah, I don't have much more to say, but I do think that like the exciting and terrifying thing is accurate. If I was DP going into the situation, I would be super excited because it's his story. He gets to tell, right?
Mm-hmm.
He has a chance and really a blank slate. And I don't think he's going to get any pushback given their record if he wants to wipe the slate clean and really start again, right? And I don't mean by adding or removing, but I mean changing the narrative and what's going on. Like he has a chance to make that impact. It's also extremely exciting for them. I think something that DP is known for in particular, at least that I could think of, and ironically the Iron Shoulder story is one of those things. Is like his intensity, right? So I think that. If I was DP, I'd be really seeking to lean into that new coach bounce, lean into the hype, right? Your team's excited, right? Your team wants to win more than anything, of course. They're hyped that you're there. You're excited to be there. If you can channel that energy, even if you're not making a ton of changes right away, but just channel the energy and kind of live in that with the team as you bond with the group. There's few things that create strong bonds like shared intent. And I think that DP and his team have a very, very clear.
I thought you were going to say trauma.
Well, it's kind of, I said it the political way, but I mean to be to be fair, I think that they all will look at it as a chance to be forged in fire here, and I think that we could see some strong things, and I think the change will happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
And
I would love to see this team do something.
And with that, I think we want to look at some other strong stuff. So I think we should get into our peak and pit for the week, the good and the bad. Starting off with the good and starting off with Pelican. I'm hoping everyone here saw this clip from the weekend where Toronto Defiant basically had a map in the bag, and then Pelican said, "Hold on, just not a chance," and then just popped off. And maybe the most clutch moment I've ever seen in an Overwatch League game. Like it's up there with like EQO's Genji from last year or 2 years ago, whenever that was. But honestly, maybe the most clutch thing I've ever seen.
I just want like a moment of silence here. This is so massive, and this sleep comes in is so gross, and then it's over. Like, oh, this sleep happens, and then just like, oh no, takes over the game.
Pelican gonna Pelican. Hi, did you know I was Overwatch League Rookie of the Year in 2020? Right?
Oh, I actually forgot that. But
Remember
also,
the name.
This dude hits more headshots in like 60 seconds than I do in like 6 months. It's truly wild.
That's Pelican's reputation precedes him. I guess I will say, and it doesn't surprise me. This clip is absolutely insane. But I'm very excited for him. But it's like you almost come to, if it was gonna be anyone in the lobby, is all I'm saying. Like you just you almost come to expect it from players like him. But insane.
Yeah, it was just unreal. Watching it. I don't remember if I even watched it live. Maybe yes, I did. I totally did watch it live. I was like, I gotta make sure I watch some games. I better catch Toronto, Houston.
It's the most epic matchup of the weekend.
I watched this live, and this fight for me as a Toronto fan was like, no, and then it just like flipped, and you're like,
dagger after dagger.
Get him! And like I started cheering for Pelican, so it started off feeling bad as a Toronto fan, and then you just wanted to see the play just unfold, just like get him off.
You know it's over. You're like, he might as well just end it the rest of the way.
Just enjoy it. Yeah, like it seemed inevitable. Pelican was gonna kill everything, so you might as well just have fun.
It was perfect though, because it was like, oh my god, Toronto's doing it. Like they're beginning to believe, and then it's completely shut down by one man and a bow and arrow. Just takes this team apart, and like enables all of these other plays to happen. Like the nano that comes in, like Ballskunk said, the nano wouldn't have happened without it. There's just all this other stuff. Like it starts with the sleep, and then Pelican just takes over the lobby.
And what made it so crazy was the fact that it was like on stage in Texas. So I know Dallas is the home team, but Houston's the second closest team.
Yeah,
They're like
there's always tons
they're
of
like the
Houston fans.
second home team in literally every market, though. Like no matter.
Houston fans are crazy too. Like they'll
Yeah,
come from
like,
all
I
over the country.
I used to do the Titans watch parties, and it was always like it didn't even matter if Houston was playing. Half the room was Houston.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh,
That-
Bolton was physically there. That's insane. That must have been
Yeah,
nuts.
Baltimore was physically in
Yeah.
in the room when Pelican killed everyone.
Just one nuts.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
so pretty unreal.
Yeah, that was fun to watch. Ageless, I know you saw. Speaking of, let's just stay on the Toronto train for a minute. But I guess Hotba had another stupid Zarya play, like stupid good.
Bunch of Canadians can't stop talking about Toronto games that are completely meaningless.
Right.
Literally can't stop. This is just cool. The whole clip is like 6 seconds, but
Oh,
like,
it's just a-
what the fuck is that? That's nuts. That's just so cool. I've just never seen anything like that. I had to go clip it. What a cool contest! Like secondary fires in the window and then just bails. Like, it's so
hot in the pool.
ridiculous looking.
when you got
Just
when
like-
you got to touch, you got to touch. You know.
like
the jump back out is what gets me because it's like you'll remember this is the day you almost caught Hotba and bam, he's like back out the
know.
window.
he like smoke bombs out of the point. Like,
Yeah.
He checks it. He's like, "Yep, still a nope." And just leaves back to the same window.
Oh well, there's a lot of bad guys here just out the window. God.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Can't wait to see everyone in my ranked games starting to do that now.
Yeah.
And failing to hit the window and just
Killing
knocking themselves
themselves,
off the
yeah.
mod. Yeah.
and you just end up killing yourself. Yeah. With the secondary fire.
Yeah, that was like
Yeah.
after the whole Defran grab on Hollywood.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Every rank
Christ,
game's like,
yeah.
let's try it. Like, no,
Or
you're
the
not.
I could weld sim TP. Yeah. Everyone thinks they can do it.
Yeah.
This is gold. We're not doing
Yeah.
that.
We're not in voice chat. Stop.
You're playing on a
people-
controller. What are you doing?
People are kind of coordinated in the text chat. Like, please no.
Yeah.
This is not the way.
Oh, don't do it.
On like Xbox Messenger. Yeah, no, it's not happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
sending out DMs.
I saw that and was like, that was just fucking hilarious. I cannot believe just kind of and then just nopes right out of the point. So yeah, that was my peak of the entire weekend. Was Hotba pogo sticking out of Lijiang Tower. I thought it was
You gotta
incredible.
wonder how long he's had that in the bag too. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
If I ever get in this situation on night market, I have to touch it 99%. I'm doing it. I'm doing
Yeah,
it.
he's been labbing that
Don't
for
do it.
weeks.
Don't do it. He's like, I'm doing it. That's,
He's in custom games limit testing that exact jump.
yeah, right.
Yeah, that's such a good feeling when you can pull that stuff off too. Like, I don't want to shuffle them too much, but I'm gonna soon hopefully be at a video playing D&D on Questline. And if you're a D&D player out there, I did something really crazy with the rope trick spell. And like before we started playing the session, I was like, if I could ever use rope trick, it's gonna be so funny. And then it actually worked. And
Do the hot
it
bow.
was it was just the most like
Yeah,
satisfying thing to like call it.
That's so funny.
Uh,
I'm
alright, what
just
else?
to
Oh,
out
go ahead.
myself as a bit of a fake fan. Since I was out being a weeb, I wasn't able to catch many of the games live, but I kept seeing like clips and stuff posted all over Reddit and Twitter, so I kept opening. Did you guys see that clip from Prophet from the APAC game on his Genji play at the end of Gibraltar? It was the most ultra instinct play I think I've seen this year, where he literally just 180 flick to flex a Widow headshot in the middle of him like killing 3 other people. Prophet as a player like always been like insane. I've made jokes before where like he looks like he's just like cybernetically engineered to be good at Overwatch. Like they wheel him out like in like a cryo chamber and then like put him on stage, and like, whenever they're done on stage they just put him back in. But like the man is absolutely insane.
We can make him. We have the technology.
Yeah,
That's what happens when
exactly.
Dynasty loses. They get to the stage, they're like, we forgot to plug in Prophet.
Yeah, I think it's always good to be able to shout out a vet too. We've seen so many standout rookies this year. It's nice to know that, you know, even though if you're 20 years old, you can still play Overwatch. We're not we're not graying yet. And I think Prophet's like one of the examples of just one of the goats of the game that sometimes when he's on like that, he's just untouchable.
It's awesome.
Yeah, he's like 25 or something, right?
Let me check.
Old guy.
Basically dying at this
That's
point.
amazing. Yeah, he's basically turning into dust before our eyes.
Dead
Yeah,
and buried.
he's 22. So yeah,
Oh,
not quite
Oh my god.
turning to dust.
Yeah.
so he's approaching retirement age here.
Yeah, he better start getting. He gotta update his will.
Yeah, he better apply
So
for
he was
Social Security.
born in the year 2000, so like I remember Y2K is
Please
like a
never
thing
say
that
that
happened.
again.
That's upsetting.
I'm just doing the math. Don't.
Okay, you gotta stop doing that math right now.
Man.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the one time I did math right.
My other peak was the like Patafan, just in general.
Yeah.
But like the like a great emotional moment on stage, just feeling good, feeling very good, and this tweet is it came up on my feed and I was like, what the fuck is happening? It's so
telling you.
good.
He's got the best tweets. The thing I brought the last time I was here was the Patavan tweet after they lost, where he tweeted, I fed first map, fed second map, and I fed your whole family too.
Yeah.
I feel like he's definitely an emotional guy. Definitely rides the highs and lows. We love to see it.
Mhm.
Love to see it.
Yeah, this is I love that. I love seeing some of the personality from players. I
Sure.
know we talked about it previously, where it's kind of a double-edged sword. Patafan, and we saw, I think it was someone this weekend for
Yeah.
Florida, just giving great interviews, just stoked. Like I know you guys you didn't have a chance to watch too much this weekend. Watch, like, if you don't want to watch Florida games, watch someone's interviews. They're really good. It's the most that Danny has like handed the mic off and had a player like legitimately talk about the game and not give like the kind of quintessential sports or esports like kind of like 2-word answers where like, yeah, well, we're just like better.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. That's adding a ton to the broadcast. Appreciate it.
Also, I know this is a bit of a tangent, but do you know the story behind someone's name?
No.
Someone
It's a mistranslation, right?
yeah, someone thought it meant like I think everyone or something like that. So like a little bit of a different meaning. And somebody's like, no, it actually just means like someone. And he went, yeah, okay, fine, just kept it. All right.
An equally confusing name if he was named Everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
any kind of any permutation of like anyone, someone,
Yeah.
like as a caster, I do feel for the casters that it'd be like, and someone goes in who it's like who's on first, right? Like
Well, the whole thing's like,
who knows it?
or although is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember when The used to play?
Oh god.
I swear, whenever I cast, there's always like one person in the lobby, and you're like, "That's your name." Like,
Yeah.
Oh,
you're not just a mess.
Because it's always like something to do with toes. And you're like, well, I can't wait to say this 50 times on broadcast. Or Shark Candy is always a good one from
Yeah.
P2.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all over the place.
Fantastic. Yeah, should we move on to our picks of the weekend?
Yeah, we could start. I don't know if Harvester can just bring up the picture that I sent him for this. This is kind of a little bit of a rant too, and like other people like in the community that have talked to me know that like I'm big on accessibility, so that kind of plays into this as well. But sometimes, depending on the team that you get playing in the Overwatch League, you cannot read the clock in the scoreboard. Because I don't know like whose brilliant idea it is to have like black and then dark purple for like the font color. Like it's really not a good look in my opinion. Like, and most games I watch like on my computer, try and read that like on your phone. It's nigh impossible. And so it just really bugs me that like they could just have white like a white font color there, and you would probably be able to read that a lot easier. Like if you look at the cap percentage in the middle,
Yeah.
especially because it's not super. It's got a little bit of transparency to it. Like you can't see it. So
They literally have white text over like the Los Angeles Gladiators name too. Like
right.
the power is there.
It just drives me crazy. Like twice a weekend, I'll be looking at some kind of Overwatch game. I can't remember any of the other teams that happens with in my head right now, but there are others.
Atlanta.
But yeah, because that'll be like black and then like the dark red, which is tough as well. And this isn't even bringing into account like people that are colorblind, like that.
Oh yeah.
That is going to make that just fully impossible. Like I'm not colorblind, I can't read it. So that is my kind of rant. My pit for the week is like make it readable. Like nobody wants to like. Okay, well they took the point 30 seconds ago and they were at 60%.
Yeah.
And like do the math.
Bring out the stopwatch.
Yeah, we can just read it. That's cool. Like, and like, who's gonna be sitting at home going like, oh, that ruins the branding or the aesthetic.
Yeah.
Like there would be people on Reddit 100%, but that's just Reddit. But like honestly, like make it readable for like as many people as possible. It just grinds my gears that they've decided
It's
to go
basic
with,
too. It's so basic.
I'm prefacing this by saying that I 100% agree with you, 100% agree with you. But I also find it somewhat funny that you were just talking about like being old as shit and like the 22-year-old. We're like, I can't see the screen. The colors make it bigger. Zoom in.
I'm much older than Prophet, so maybe that's. I don't know.
Yeah. On that, and yeah, there was a problem with Atlanta as well. Yeah, it's weird. It's not even like a blue-green colorblind. We're like, oh, I didn't realize that because colorblind. It's like, it's contrast.
This wasn't a problem in Overwatch 1 either. Like, did they really have to change how they programmed the colors for the text on like?
Yeah, like just stop. Yeah. Our other pits is just like the Titans staffing changes in general. I know we talked about DPA coming in, but the like Flubby and Pew on the way out was like, I understand that like it's a public facing job ish, and you kind of deal with obviously some kind of ridiculous takes on Reddit and Twitter, but it got like really kind of toxic, like really toxic towards the coaches on their way out. And I think regardless of how the outcomes and the wins, losses, stuff like that went, it really does seem like no one realized or maybe follows tier 2 Overwatch. These were coaches from Second Wind. Like these were talented people. It wasn't like someone like brought in their nephew to like build the website, and it was like,
which would be an Aquilini move.
Oh, absolutely. It would be something that they did, but you could even see it like even on Reddit over the weekend. It was like, oh, it's nepotism. Like it was nepotism to get these coaches from Second Wind in to coach this team. Like
that's a bad take.
What the hell? And it sucks because like someone will say that and then it gets repeated and then now that's the story.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, the Titans coaches didn't really find a lot of success in Overwatch League, but my God, they're still human beings. Chill out. It is like at the end of the day, it is a fucking video game. Relax. These, so you're the team that you didn't give a shit about until they fired their coaches. Didn't do well. That's okay. It's so I was disappointed to see even like Pew's like resignation tweet and stuff like that. Is there's people just like going hard in the replies, and it was like, man, like they're gone. Stop. Like it's so unnecessary.
It makes me think of, I don't know if it's ironic we're talking about, I know we're obviously talking about the Titans here, but you guys ever seen like the DPay thing where he talks about like his separation from the Glads originally, and how like in the in like the last meeting he had with the Glads that he literally was in tears because it devolved into like a kind of like a whatever. I don't want to, but it devolved into like a personal attack kind of thing. And he said he's the first time in his life he's ever cried in a meeting. He cried walking out, and he cried when he got home. Just like not even about like the fact that he wasn't with them anymore, just like the fact that it became like really personal and just like frankly way over the line of professional and inappropriate. And like it's just shitty. Just all the way around. That should just never happen. And that's not even like your local shitters on Twitter that are gonna do that. Sorry for the language there, but like that are the Redditors gonna Reddit, like NewBeat said a minute ago, right? Like it's gonna happen. And you're a public figure and a professional coach, like you gotta be somewhat
the
tough
territory
on.
a little bit.
Yeah, it's gonna exist, but that doesn't mean
It shouldn't.
It should.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It shouldn't come with the territory. Like, hey, you want to get abused by children on a website? No. You want to play video games.
You're right. Yep.
And like to add to that, Ageless, like, and I've said it I think on Highground before, but like Pew and Flubby are just awesome people, and I'm not saying like you shouldn't make fun of them because they're awesome people, but like just as an aside, like they were great to hang out with when they came out and like hang out with us during the Questline Open. And like I was like, we watched a game of them together. I was in like tears laughing because they'd just be just like, what is this Sigma doing? They're gonna throw the rock out, and just I can't really go into the stories because it would take too long. But they had me in like tears laughing for like 2 days.
Yeah,
that's the most related. That's the most relatable coaching thing ever, by the way. As a note, and I think Tick will agree with this too. But I promise you, it is way more stressful to watch a team you coach play a game than it is to be on the team playing the game. That I will die on that mountain.
Yeah.
It is.
That's not unique to esports either. Like that's just like when you want to have influence over something and you physically cannot. Yeah,
Right.
that's the worst.
Well, like even for like little events like game day and stuff, like even if we're just coaching a tournament team, like I am a wreck. Like I am like I have to like prep for like 24 hours. And I consider myself pretty mentally strong, but I need snacks and like I need snacks in a snuggie. Like it's rough.
I will mention as well, like we weren't watching teams that they coach. Like we weren't watching the Titans. We were watching teams at the Questline Open. So they were just there, just kind of like ripping on people that like threw a bad accretion or whatever. And I was just like crying, laughing. It was so good. Like I guess technically, Psycho was in the tournament, and like Psycho played for the Titans at the time, kind of, but really at the end of the day it was just so much fun to like hang out with them, just like as people, just like chilling out watching some Overwatch. So I'm sure they'll crush whatever they do next, but I just wanted to kind of give them a shout out as well, just from how nice they are to
Always a hard situation to be in. I mean, speaking from just a little bit of personal experience as well, like it sucks.
From Reddit bullshit hot takes crucifying the shit out of you.
Oh man, yeah. I honestly I don't know if it was worse while we were still playing or when I got dropped, but yeah, it's not fun, and it's easy to say like just disconnect yourself from it, but like it's just people at the other side of the screen, and being in their situation, like obviously it's not like they were performing well, obviously, so it doesn't make sense that they're looking to make structural changes, but public perception will never understand any aspect of what goes on behind the scenes. So even though like they have a pretty abysmal record, to be honest, in the Overwatch League, these guys have my utmost respect as coaches. I'm sure they've been doing everything they can be doing, and obviously they're taking it in stride, at least publicly facing, as best as they can. So if you guys see any of them like trying to make content in the scene, trying to make it best, like be sure to go support them. They deserve it.
Sure.
They put the work in. They stayed with the Titans through a whole year of struggles, and they did not back down this year until I guess the org wanted to make some structural changes. So good on them for sticking with it. It is not an easy thing to do when a team is struggling, to be there 100% for them. And like Koby said, like it's stressful, of course, being a player in the league. I would argue it's definitely more stressful being even just like an onlooker, but like a coach who feels more responsible for the teams as well. Like it is a nightmare for these people, let alone the public perception. So Definitely don't feed into that. If they happen to be watching this, nothing but love for you guys. Ton of respect from a fellow dropped coach. And yeah, best of luck to whatever they do next.
Just like a lot of the takes, and I think my big problem with it was like they were treating it like maybe the coaches weren't aware that the record was bad. Like everyone's like, yeah, but you guys
Why
aren't
aren't they just winning? Yeah.
Yeah, like what the fuck? They know that. They know that they're not. It's not like they're like, well, another successful day getting our dicks kicked off on Elios. Whew.
We did it again.
Yeah, somebody's like, yeah, you know your record bad, and they're going like, what? What?
Since when?
Nobody told me.
Yeah,
Somebody should have mentioned it.
It's a good point because I was gonna say, I promise you, no one wants to win more than them.
yeah, no, exactly. Like these are still people who are passionate about the game. They're still human beings who don't need it, you know. So yeah, that was my big thing. It was just like, you know, the Titans win rate was, you know, obviously horrific, but there's more to it. It's not like, oh, they're completely incompetent idiots. Like these are still very talented people, and these are still people.
And Ageless, this is like we've touched on this before, but it bears mentioning again. We're 6 years into Overwatch. If anyone's still here, sticking around, they have a vested interest and they like it. So why, like, we're all on the same team, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. That was my big one.
It's a good one. The one that I put down for the pit of the week, and this is just the nature of any double M tournament. I don't think it's unique to esports, but I do think it's particularly impactful when so much of the mental game exists, which is the tournament scheduling can be really hard. Just for fun, heading into those finals, the final game, Fuel played 4 matches within 30 hours leading into that, and the Glads only played 2. Also, the Glads, if you look at the spacing of the matches, the Glads had way more time to get rest, to be better prepared. And it's almost an asterisk in my book a little bit to some regard, in the sense that the Glads are that good, and they definitely looked and were the better team. Not denying that. But you have to wonder if a well-rested, well-prepped, more suited Fuel gives them a better look. I think that people often underestimate the amount of mental effort that goes into 4 Overwatch League matches, especially that are difficult, right? That they, especially in the 3 of them being in the losers bracket, 4 Overwatch matches within 30 hours. Like if you're not boomed by then, mentally, or at least you are feeling
exhausted.
Yeah, for sure. And then to go play the grand finals, just on stage with all the pressure of not wanting to let the home crowd down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I guess, like, to be devil's advocate, that is kind of like the benefit of staying on the winner's side, because it's not a proper double limb bracket with a run back in grand finals. So I know a lot of people who claim to speak about competitive integrity but don't actually know what that means have criticized the format of the Overwatch League, because if you're playing like a fighting game, for example, that's just one-on-one where sets last 10-15 minutes, you do a run back in grand finals. But these are sets that last an hour and a half, 2 hours minimum. Yep. You're not going to have time, and you're not going to schedule an extra day in case you need it, kind of thing. So it's kind of required for this bracket. But it is good, of course, to incentivize not sandbagging and just like trying to make a loser's run for no reason. Even if it might be an easier path, you do have a more hectic schedule, which makes things, I don't know. I think it's just worth talking about. I don't know if I still like the format or not, but it is something.
Yeah, I think that regardless of how you feel about the format, there's a very clear discrepancy in mental wear between what those used to do, especially given that loser bracket finals and grand finals were literally back to back.
Yeah, which is insane.
So.
But
Koby, I was gonna say you make a really good point too about it being on stage and like not wanting to let the fans down, but also like if anyone's ever done any kind of performing where you're on a stage in front of a crowd, there's like an adrenaline rush when you're on that stage, and then you come down when you go off. So if you're going up and then down and then up and then down, the wear and tear is just like exponential at that point.
For sure.
Yeah, very true.
I don't have a solution or anything to complain about. Just throwing that out there is an interesting conversation piece.
Longer format tournaments and region-based tournaments, and no more Global League, and Vegas Eternal.
Also, no self bubbles.
Yeah. Oh
And
god.
well,
Part of me hopes they just like nerf Zarya to having one bubble and just no one plays her anymore, because I can't stand watching these players just let bubbles rip for no reason. It was every map from the Fuel in the grand finals. Every single map I saw it, and
Tikatee, the
I
next
just don't
beta that
know.
comes out, I'll just record myself playing a bunch of Zarya, and then you'll be like blessed watching Overwatch League. So like, this.
yeah, we had to lower the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else we got here? We had our diamonds in the rough. Koby had a diamond in the rough. Hawk Zarya.
Yeah, I mentioned it before. I think Hawk Zarya was obviously overshadowed by the by Zarya playing the Hanbin character. But I do, obviously Hanbin Zarya gonna go burr. But I was impressed by Hawk Zarya. I thought it was good. I thought it was especially good across from Hanbin, and I think that Hawk gets very little love for any other hero other than Doom. Perhaps rightfully so, right? Doom is the hero, but I thought he played really well. I was impressed.
it's funny to think of Hawk as a Doom player now, knowing he was like one of the better Sigmas in the league in Overwatch 1, right? He was known for his Sigma Diva, being an off tank and all. So it's funny to, yeah, I mean, like, I know he's been playing a ton of Doom, it's just my ears were just like, Hawk? Doomfist? Is this his hero? Yeah, everyone's changing identities this year.
Except Fearless.
Hey, he played a little bit of Doomfist too. He's a DPS player. He's a DPS Winston for sure, and he dies like it.
You got a hard diff on Doom.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're not gonna talk about the Fearless too. Okay, but I
Work
do
in
want to talk
progress.
about the Fearless juggle on Gibraltar really quick. Give me 10 seconds where he juggles the Ana into a corner, and then he hears the Brig behind him ulting, so he juggles the Brig away from the Ana, turns around, juggles the Ana back into the corner, 180s again, continues to juggle the Brig away from the Ana to try and get this kill. Unbelievable. I've never seen anything like this. And there was 3 people. He juggled 3 people at the same time in a small room in order to keep the rally armor from going onto the Ana. If you guys, I think you guys probably missed that game.
I
Literally
didn't see
just
it,
watch that.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Just like, I'm not a juggling expert, but I mean, you gotta juggle at least 3 things for it to be impressive, right?
I think that's true,
Any
yeah.
less than that, yeah.
It's that yeah. There's a lot of stuff that I miss live. I watched that live and was like, is that what is actually happening right now? He is juggling an alting Brig away from the Ana that's in the same room in order to keep the rally armor off of the Ana while he's still killing the Ana. Like,
Well, Primal is the best ultimate in the game, so only to be
we're
expected.
back on it.
Everyone, put on your seatbelts. Drive it. Here we go.
So okay, we're running out of time here. We gotta move on really
We
quick.
can't go into
So,
that now.
Yeah, next week, no games. Very sad. The week after though, we're back. I'm actually just like looking ahead at matches that look kind of interesting for me. Outlaws versus Justice, I'm actually really interested in. These are kind of like teams that kind of show up differently every time. I'm interested to see if Outlaws are going to make any adjustments, or if they're just going to like go full on. We play Dante on Doomfist, and like this is how our season's going to look, kind of thing.
Do you guys
there's
think
probably gonna
we're
be
going to see a major patch? Yeah. I'm wondering, like, are we going to see Houston actually play a tank player? If Doomfist doesn't get enough love, or if the meta isn't favoring Doomfist enough? Like, if Bracer stays meta, I can see Doomfist getting punished pretty heavily. If Dive becomes more meta, or Winston gets stronger, God forbid if Zarya gets stronger, if these heroes start really outclassing Doomfist, I could see him potentially being one of the heroes to suffer if he doesn't get some love, I think. But also, they could throw way too much his way and everyone could start playing Doomfist in the same way. I'm hoping Blizzard doesn't overreact to a somewhat stable, we'll call, meta in the patch right now, because I don't want them to just force heroes to be meta. But I am a little bit bored of Reaper, and I don't think characters like Moira should ever be played in the Overwatch League, but that's just me. So I hope they change up enough, but I hope they don't like try to force like the new stuff. Like if they drop a new hero, just make them overpowered. If they like overtune Sojourn because she's new, if they overtune Orisa because she's new, or Doomfist, like I don't want to see them forced. But I do think some balance changes could make the game more interesting than Reaper Zarya, at least.
I would love to see Orisa, honestly. Like,
we saw our first Orisa play this weekend, huh? For
Yeah,
about 30 seconds.
It was brutal. But just like the idea of Orisa is so badass, where you're like, I can just spin this javelin, then I'm gonna throw it in your chest. Like, that's awesome.
I thought the Orisa thing was funny because I don't know who it was in the group chat that was like, "Oh, they're playing Orisa," and I literally turned on the Overwatch League, like, they've already switched. Don't bother. Oh, that was great.
Apparently, they're getting the Zen kick patch for the next tournament.
Oh.
Is that confirmed though? Because that definitely felt like an experimental patch. Like that definitely felt like beta's getting stale, guys.
Like,
throw something on the table.
Yeah, even the developers. The developers had an interview with SVB and ML7, and they were talking about like different ways to balance stuff and all that. And they said, and they were talking, I think, about the Mercy super jump patch that they did at the end as well. They were like, well, normally we wouldn't do this and throw it into a live game, but like it's a beta. We want to try stuff, so we figured, what the heck, we'll throw it in there. So I don't know if you'll see some of that stuff coming back, but you know, I think it's still all up in the air.
Yeah, I really hope so. I think that would be hilarious. Although I think that in Owl, Zen would become just so broken.
I will say there was a full day where I was playing Overwatch 1 where I was like, why can't I super jump? I thought you could do it now. Nope.
I fully tried Fire Strike twice yesterday. Like,
did you ever fail to cancel a pin and just go off the map?
I mean, yeah, yes, for the last 6 years.
Yeah, let's blame Overwatch 2, but looking forward to next week. Like, Koby, I know you mentioned like Fuel vs. Shock. Is that just one of those matches where you just want to see like, are these teams good, bad? Like, what's going on? Like, are you just trying to gauge them?
I have no idea what's going to happen at this point. And I mean, it's one of those things too where it's like I would love to see if Shock, you know, see which Shock shows up, because like we got our first glimpse of the Shock that didn't look like Shock, and then you know, for Fuel as well, you know, I think two preseason powerhouses that are so-called predicted powerhouse teams that have maybe fumbled their footing a bit or have lost some of the footing potentially, and I think it'd be really interesting to see how this match goes. I also think that I'll let you talk about yours, but I think yours has a lot of merit too. Will be my second pick. You know, that the Titans versus Glads, given the Iron Shoulder.
It's funny that I wrote this before the Depay news, or at least I thought of it before the Depay news, because I was like, wouldn't it be just crazy if like the Titans came out and beat the Kickoff Clash,
the stage champs,
and then the Depay news happened, and I'm like, now there would actually be a reason, so it adds like another layer of just complete craziness that might happen. Honestly, I'd give the Titans maybe a 2% chance of being really generous.
That's
like
generous.
2.5%. But at the end of the day, like, you're gonna see the Glads coming back in. I like watching Glads games because I like Funny Astro as Lucio. I'd like to see more space, but like, you can't blame them for just sticking with Reiner, because Reiner's been really solid so far. But I think that one is going to be a fun one to watch. And now with the added layer of the new coach being there for the Titans, I think that's going to really like spice things up a bit as well.
I think if Vancouver win that game, it would guarantee in my head that Overwatch League is scripted and is an anime.
100%.
That would be the most outrage. Like like a 3-0 Vancouver over Glads, you know, like it's like just get things into high gear.
Competitive Overwatch subreddit would have to like shut down.
That's gonna be a locked game thread right there.
Yeah,
like, that's the game to bet on. Like that's the game about betting. Where
Yeah.
I was gonna say, do you know if anywhere will give me odds for the Titans?
Yeah.
Throw down like $10.
that's the
Throw
game
that
that maybe put $20 on Vancouver and just see what happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like
So,
going into a casino to play blackjack. Like, okay, I have a limit. I know I'm gonna lose it. So just treat it like
But
that.
just in case, yeah.
really
looking at the schedule-
quickly.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna bring up my favorite team again, the London Spitfire. They've got 2 matches the opening weekend coming in on the 16th. They play Florida and Toronto. And given how they shellapped the Atlanta Rain around, and given that teams are starting to like show this is headcanon at this point. It's probably not true.
Putting
But
respect on their name.
yeah, teams are putting respect on London by running the Rhine stuff. Like we saw Glads running the London comp in the grand finals. So like people are turning heads. And I think out of all the changes that I might anticipate, every hero that London plays probably isn't high up on their balance list because they're not super popular and they're not super broken looking. London could just come out of the gate like still playing the same game while everyone else is trying to figure out new meta and just start solidifying themselves as a middle to higher end team if they have what it takes. With a very straight face, I'm saying this. So there's a very good possibility in my head that both Florida and Toronto could fall to London, and this would be the start of the prime tournament arc for the London Spitfire.
This is the, like, they can't keep getting away with this.
Yeah.
Did you see the Rain? The Rain played the Rhine Rush.
Everyone's been running it.
The Rain
No one
played
as good as London.
the Rain played it to close hold on Circuit Royale, and they didn't come out of the small room.
Yep.
It was,
yeah.
I also saw Houston do it with a Symmetra and just like throw TPs around it and not take them. So, you know,
Yeah,
people are just doing stuff.
I was so hyped when I saw them come out. I'm like, they're gonna do the thing, and then they got in the room, and I'm like, the thing, and then they didn't do it. I was like, no, like debated so hard, they just like backed up to corner and got smacked. But it was really funny because the fuel were like, oh, okay, I just went back in his spawn and pushed the doom, and then just dove him and just rolled.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really quickly, I know we're like way over time now, but New Queen Street, Florida versus Atlanta. Literally no one on stage knew who won the game.
The wrong name came up on the screen.
The wrong name came up on the screen because it was in overtime on
Data?
push,
Yeah.
and like both teams were touching the robot. And then, yeah, like the game was like, oh, this team won, and it was wrong.
Esports ready.
You could
Yeah,
see,
it was-
I can't remember which player it was for Florida. Like looked around, like, "You kidding me? You kidding me?" And then they were like, "No, you won. It's cool. Don't worry about it." Like,
Yeah, it
Oh
was.
my God.
they were about to throw down. It was pretty funny.
Might have been Hydron, but to flip the desk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was interesting over the weekend. Turns out like overtime and push is pretty weird. Even the game wasn't sure who won, and it was in fact incorrect.
But it's new game mode. The game's still figuring out. It's fine.
Yeah, it was because so they had both. Yeah, we're seeing Ageless in chat saying they had both capped first point but hadn't pushed past it.
Right.
So-
that's the
Oh,
draw
yeah.
scenario, right?
That would be
The rope.
probably the top of my list of things to change. Speaking of balance changes moving forward, do you think they're going to rebalance push in any way? 'Cause
They-
that would be like one of the first
they
things I would
better.
change. The 5
Yeah.
years it takes for the robot to scratch his ass before pushing the payload some more. Like,
It's really weird to me. It's like, hey, everyone, then stop. It's like musical chairs or something.
yeah,
Like
change
freeze tag.
places. Yeah.
Well, and like just take a bulldozer through Coliseum. Holy shit, that map.
You know, what'd be really cool is if we uninstall push from the game.
Well, but they're not bringing
also leave
2CP back.
Yeah, no.
Don't you dare.
Yeah.
Listen, I know you're a fellow 2CP lover, so
It has its merits. What if they brought 2CP back, but it's only Horizon and Paris?
I'd throw my computer out the window because it's somewhere on there.
To the moon.
Yeah. Two
esports
Horizon
ready.
Lunicon. Call it, yeah. Yeah, I was watching old clips of like great old Overwatch plays. I'm like, oh my god, they're playing Horizon. This is crazy. What a time to be alive.
Yeah.
Those two maps alone comprise like 90% of like the set strats I've made for maps. Like as a coach, like those two maps required such intricate planning to get through all the bullshit, and then you'd still get hit by more bullshit. This is okay. This will be my final rant of the night, but I just got a little bit of flashback memory to when I was working on the fuel. We had a defense set up when Sombra dive was popular. That was our guaranteed thing to deny Sombra approach angles. We had like spam angles from 3 different places defending Horizon first point. And literally Note is playing D.Va sitting on a corner just spamming the main choke with his cannons, and a cloaked Sombra just runs past him through the D.Va spread. And we're just like, it's just like we had all these setups planned so this very specific thing couldn't happen, and he just runs through it, like just going through like laser tripwire. It was the most tilting thing I've ever seen.
Awesome. I want that clip. I wish that clip existed.
Yeah, talk about throwing your computer in a window. Oh my god.
That's
The
amazing.
spread from dual shotguns. Anyway.
Yeah, what upcoming events? Upcoming events, there's not really much because everyone is like waiting for the next beta, which I think we're getting news. What is it? They say the 16th is
When the games
next
start.
game? Yeah.
So they're probably going to do a pre-games broadcast or something.
I was surprised there wasn't anything at the end of this tournament. Like, hey, tune into the finals because we'll talk about some new news. But
Maybe this week or next week they'll release something during the dry spell, but no,
it'll be an announcement of an announcement.
Yeah, it'll be a tweet.
Yeah. But upcoming events, we do have Open Division. Round 8 of the Open Division, it's down to the Smart Brain users and GeForce for NA, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
We had GeForce for the Questline Open, and they're really good.
They're real
Yeah.
good.
I
They are
feel
real
bad.
good.
Did they win?
Yeah.
I can't believe I can't remember who won. We spent so much.
They were definitely the strongest looking like ball tracer Zen team in the entire tournament, like bar none, which was very meta at the time. I don't know what Overwatch 1 is looking like these days. There haven't been any patches, so I imagine not too much has changed.
Yeah, I imagine
but
it's
yeah.
GeForce just running circles around everyone. Also in EU, it's Munich Esports is in the finals for the Europe, Middle East, Africa. So Munich Esports, I'm just pulling up their roster here. Choose Finzi, level 1 Crook, Trust Me. So very similar. Psycho was on the team as well. So some
Very familiar names. They used to go by Trust the Process, right? When they played in the Questline tournament.
Yeah, there
so
was
Munich
a naming conflict.
Esports. Yeah, but I think they couldn't go under Munich Esports for some reason. So whenever
branding
they
reasons.
whenever they
it's-
can't do that, they go under.
It's because they had the two
Okay.
teams.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because they couldn't compete all on one team as an actual contenders team. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes
Oh,
sense,
that's
makes
right.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
they
they
had
didn't
the
have
two-
all the actual players from Munich Esports.
Yeah.
And then the Australia, New Zealand has. I don't know like any of these teams though from Australia. Does anyone follow the Australia, New Zealand Open Division at all?
No, that's
Okay, so it's that one is actually over. So that was won by TXQ Frog. Is what happened?
oh, congrats to
They
them.
won.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, because we are terrible Overwatch fans, we talked about them last week, but again, Map 5 podcast follows Open Division like really closely, and they're usually pretty aware of like everything that's going around ever in Tier 3. Definitely worth giving them a watch, giving them a listen, because yeah, there's some really interesting players. We've seen a lot of these players in some of our tournaments, and
Right.
I know Tikatee just spent a lot of time on the desk analyzing their gameplay as well. So it's cool seeing some of those familiar names like GeForce and Trust Me and all that coming back.
Yeah, absolutely, and definitely would not be surprised to see them competing in contenders soon. So looking forward to that as well. Whenever that gets finalized.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to
Sweet.
that. So that's kind of it for events, though. I think everyone's kind of
Yeah.
just like waiting.
Yeah, it's the waiting game till Overwatch 2 comes back.
So
Yeah. So that is going to do it for us on Highground this week. Again, sorry for my tardiness and my lack of camera this week, but I'm sure that will be fixed. Great for stuff to happen right before you're supposed to go on, but stuff happens. But yeah, just thanks again for joining me, Tikatee. Koby being our special guest once again, 2-time guest. You got the belt now, so
The 2-time.
you can hold on to that.
Thank you.
And I do believe Ageless will we be back next Monday as well? Should I?
yeah, we'll
Shout
be
that out.
back.
Yeah, we'll be back next Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Shout out to Harvester doing all our production. We love you. And thank you at home for watching, and we will see you next time.